he's playing with a little twisty tie.
Let me tell you what my stupid dog does now. She's been freaking me out because normally she loves running to my room.
Yeah.
And the last 2 nights, she looks down the hallway into my room and will not come in it. I have to go pick her up. And when she's in my room, she starts shaking and looking up at like the corners and stuff. And I'm like,
hell
what?
no.
But the other dog is fine.
Burn it down.
And I'm like, what are you looking at? Why are you looking up at the corners of my room? And why are you suddenly afraid to be in my room? Like, she won't come for the treats. She just sits in the hallway and stares. And then if she's in my room, but it's only at night. She only does it at night. She'll start shaking it. During the day, she's fine. Daylight, outside.
Sage? You want some sage?
I have sage. She, like...
I don't know.
Anyways, I'm sorry. Your cat doing that made me think of my dog and how freaked out I am because you always talk about, like, people looking at corners and stuff behind you.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Case Files with Kat
and Ashley.
What did it say?
I don't know.
People know. The wizards over here going, it's Case Files with Kat and Ashley. Like, we have to say our name.
Okay, but just in case I die.
Just in case
I just needed people to know my dog has been seeing crap in my house. I don't get it. She does it in the living room sometimes too, but she doesn't shake. She just looks up. But in my room, no.
Dude.
Corners, freaks out, shakes only at night.
So this reminds me of the little news clip that the wizard sent to us the other day, which is like my absolute nightmare, which was from the BBC. Do you remember that? Hold on. So it was from the BBC. Absolute. This is my worst nightmare. Hold on. I got to pull it. No, I got to pull it up. Shoot. Because I don't want to.
I really thought it was going to be the doll article I sent you.
I don't want right?
If you guys didn't know, there's an article about random doll parts just washing ashore and people spending hundreds and like thousands of dollars to collect them because they want them in their collections. But they're just random body parts. It's not like whole dolls. It's like a doll head here, a doll leg there, like just random doll parts.
Are they like old or are they newish?
No, they're like
newish.
The doll heads don't have hair or anything.
Oh, God.
You know, like what I mean? Kind of like they're still in production. It's weird.
So like maybe something fell off a boat or something. I don't know. So the BBC News headline, and this was from last Thursday, babysitter finds man under bed after child complains of monster.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Mm-mm. Nope. That's a whole lot of nope. No. And then, then you sent the...
the dolls have been washing ashore the south.
And there's like
South
crayons.
Texas beaches.
There's like, it's like markered.
Yeah. They found over 20 dolls pieces.
That's
like 20 pieces
nightmares.
to dolls. Anyways, crazy stuff happening. But no, absolutely not. I keep my my bed just stuffed full of crap so that no one can fit underneath there.
I hate under the bed.
And my closet is too. My closet is a mess. Underneath my bed is a mess. No one's hiding in either.
So like you're like that's on purpose because
well, it's
fuck that
sure.
space.
We'll say that it's on purpose. I have purposefully made my house a chaos so no one can sneak in and hide anywhere. If they find a hiding space, they deserve to rob me. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Guys, we've been outside all day.
I've been in the heat.
Yeah, the sweaty.
I have no AC in my car.
The chamber had a golf tournament today. Yeah, thank you, chamber. I'm gonna say the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce had their golf tournament because we were told they never say the name; they just say the chamber.
Because it is the chamber.
The chamber. That's it.
If you have a business, join it.
So that's it. If you have a business, join it. If you're around here,
you'll see us all the time.
Shout out to all of our listeners. What's up, Cindy? What? Okay. Okay. So, remember last time I said I'm gonna do a heartwarming story. Remember I said that?
You say that all the time.
But do you remember I said that? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as promised, this is not, it's fucked up, but it's not as dark as my prior story. So see, I keep my promises.
Right? Sure. If that's your definition of heartwarming.
Hey, there's a good ending.
Bad for the wizard if that's like.
There's a good ending.
Okay.
It's a good ending. Okay.
Right.
So actually, I'm going to say this. This is, I was writing, as I was writing the episode. What's up with my, all of this?
You would never know. We've been doing this for 7 years.
My mouse just wasn't working. Okay. So this is what I wrote because I got, the power of the keyboard was just getting to me. I said, This is what I read. Actually, it's quite an empowering story when you get to the end of it. A story of a group of women and law enforcement determined to take down the bad guy. A story of justice and healing. Amazing, right? I mean, it's so poetic, so poetic.
So good.
I mean, usually we bring you down a bit. I mean, at least I do. And or we make you really mad. So this is going to be like, what the fuck? It's going to be like mind blowing, but it has a good ending. So spoiler alert. Yes. So tonight, dear listeners, I want you to imagine, close your eyes. No, that you're single and you've just met the perfect man or partner. Perfect. He's charming, supportive, and even a secret CIA agent.
Oh,
I know.
Secret.
But behind the facade, there are a con artist, a pathological liar, and a predator who leaves a trail of devastation across 3 continents, from Japan to the UK to Mexico to the US.
Isn't that 4?
Mexico and the US are on the same continent.
Oh, you said continent. I'm sorry. I thought you said okay. Sorry. Sorry. I missed the word continent.
Continent. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, sure. And so many people are emotionally and financially hurt by this person. So today I'm diving into the twisted tale of William Allen Jordan. You heard of him?
Oh, no.
So he's a bigamist. He's a fraudster whose lies not only shattered lives, but also led to the proposal of a groundbreaking and very controversial, and we can talk about this once I finish the story, because there is a lot, I think, there is a lot to be said about it, of the rape by fraud bill.
Okay.
And so this was in New Jersey that was proposed. Now, one of the reasons I'm doing this story is because this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
I don't think I've ever heard of rape by fraud. So.
Yeah. So, and we can go more into it afterwards. I mean, it does have to do with the story.
Right.
It's because of her that this was included. It's because of her that it was even proposed. Yeah. So we can go into it later, because I do think it's worth a conversation. Right. I absolutely do, because the arguments against it I get, but the arguments for it I think are just very.
Well, and some people may not know.
Understand. Yeah.
They may not know.
Well, and it's still so controversial, like it hasn't passed yet. So it's still there. And I think that the argument for this to be something that we advocate for should be something to consider. Yeah. And I think maybe it's not perfect, and maybe the language has to change, but anyway, we can talk about it after I finish the story. Anyway, so let's just start with just who was William Allen Jordan. And to answer that, well, it's not simple, because the stories that he told versus what we know to be true has so many gaps. And so here's what we do know. He was born in the US. He spent most of his time in the UK, and then that's it. Oh. Like, we don't know. I don't know how his family history hasn't, like, there's not a Wikipedia about, like. That
is bizarre.
So I did not do the due diligence of reading the book about him there, and I'll get to that because I just found out about it. But there's not that history would have come from him, and it wouldn't have come from a researcher, historian,
so
somebody
would be true anyways.
Right. So like, how much of that would you even take to be like truth? Yeah. So, his parents were both living at the time, as of 2023, they were living in New Jersey. So we know that's true. His mom, at least, was still living in New Jersey. So we know that much about him. And then he spent a lot of time in the UK. He did have an English accent. So it's not clear why he was in the UK for so long, or what his parents did for work. Like, so that kind of information is just, it's not there. Yeah. So his personal life remains quite a mystery. So what the hell do we know why am I even telling the story? Right. So, well, what we know is that what we've been able to find from a long trail of victims that he left in his wake. So everything in the story is told by the people who lived it with him and came forward and helped bring him down.
Okay.
So when I say that this has a happy ending, I don't mean necessarily or a good ending. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect ending. You want so much more justice, but at least there was
justice.
There's something. Yes. So when this story became, well, I guess a topic that we were going to cover on Case Files with Kat and Ashley, when it became something worthwhile, it was already many, many, many years in the making. So we'll just start from there and meet our first heroine of our story. And her name is Mary Turner Thompson.
Oh, okay.
And Mary Turner Thompson, she met William Allen Jordan in 2000, and they met online. And she was a single mother living in Edinburgh, Scotland. Little Turner's not working here.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. She was happy, as she would describe it. She was happy being a single mom. She had a little girl who she adored. She had a great job. She owned her flat. She had a good life.
Yeah.
But she was also like, I'd like to go on a date. So,
and I'm sorry, you said that she's in the UK.
Yeah, in Edinburgh. And so she decides to venture in. So this is 2000. There's not a whole. There's the internet, but it's not amazing.
Right.
And so she does the online dating thing, and when she met William, she just felt like it was so easy to talk with him, to be with him. He was very easygoing. He was so charming, and they seemed to like the same things. And this is across the board. Anyone who's ever come forward or talked about him, this is exactly what they say. There's gifts. There's just that love bombing. Mm-hmm. There's so much of that.
Yeah.
There's the expensive gifts and sort of not necessarily wining and dining, because it's not what they were looking for, but that sort of like constant, you're there, you're cooking dinner together, and there's just nice things showing up. It's not it's not the expensive dinners at a restaurant, because she's a single mom. Right. So it was, I'm going to bring over groceries and we're going to cook together, and I'm going to play with your kid, and it's lovely. And, I can't have kids of my own, is what he told her. Like I'll get to that actually.
Okay.
So as their relationship started, a few things were a bit odd, though.
Okay.
Like he couldn't talk to her during the day because of his job. So he could only talk to her outside of working hours. And
but I mean, that's not that weird depending on what your job is.
It's not that weird. So she wasn't really like totally aware of what he did, but it was like, okay, like, he did IT. That's what he did. Lots of computer stuff, but she wasn't totally aware of everything that like who he worked for. He had his own IT company, is what he said. But he did work for other people, and sometimes those clients would call him away. And then there's, so it was all very kind of, it seemed secretive. And so she was like, oh, okay. And then it started to, the relationship, he started to sweep her off her feet. So it started to become really like a whirlwind. So he's got her believing enough in him that he's kind of doing this sort of secretive, he can't really tell her everything about his job, but she's okay with him having to be whisked away sometimes, and so he convinced her eventually that he was a CIA agent. Nice. And ultimately he said that if she really wanted to date him, then she was going to have to get some special clearances, and she would have to pay for the background check, and she would have to have a special phone that his handlers could, first of all.
What an arrogant person to be like, yeah, if you want to date me, you have to pay.
I know,
but that's just like, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being that.
It's not the first date that this happens. It's like, okay, I've built up enough.
But I can't imagine being so arrogant that I thought someone would, like, I would never be able to ask someone to pay to do to date. You know what I mean?
Tell you, a background check is like $25.
I know, but still, that's
I'm just saying.
You know what I mean? To like hear all of these things, like you have to have a special clearance,
Yeah.
you have to do a background check, and you have to get the special phone. My hand, like that's. I would be like, dude, no, I'm sorry.
That's a lot.
You're great, but no. See you when you're in town.
I know.
Like that's so much. I'm not blaming her. I'm just saying that to me sounds like he's such an arrogant person. He must have been such a great manipulator.
He was
to get these women to do this because that sounds like so much.
Because he wasn't like a super good-looking guy, y'all.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't, Ryan Gosling or Tom Hardy running around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But he was so mild-mannered. He was so confident.
I'm sure he was good with the kids.
He was so good with the kids. And he was so just gosh, he could turn things around, He just he was quick on his feet that way. Anyway, so she got the special phone, and now, like, of course, I'm not even going to bring this back up again, but he was really good on the computer. He actually was really, everything's computer. So those phones, he was able to write a program to text her some crazy code looking thing from the computer, so there wasn't a callback number. So that's why she had to have a special kind of phone, because that
is so smart, especially back then.
He was really smart.
Yeah.
So he was texting, he would have these messages being sent to her from a handler, like something, like code red or whatever. And she would be like, oh, okay. And so it was a very big lie.
Yeah.
It was a very well thought out. Yeah. It was a very good liar.
So much work.
I know. The deception was so good. So it's almost like a catfish, but in person, right? She would talk to his handler, who sounded like an old Scottish guy, is what she said. So was that a hire? Was that an actor? Because he didn't sound like an old Scottish guy, right? And so when he was stationed or when he couldn't connect with her, there was always this person who called her Al or something, and so she would talk to Al and like, oh, he's away, and you're not gonna be able to get in touch with him for a while. And so she would worry so much about him. And at one point he was in Israel. And I'm sorry, like I lost my place. At one point he was in Israel, and so he would be texting her like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what I'm seeing. And I'm watching friends die in attacks and this and that and the other. And then she would see it on like the evening news, but he was watching like international TV. So like he was keeping like a day ahead of the news, a day or two ahead of everything.
Yeah.
So she was like, oh, he must really... No secret agent is going to be telling you news before that. Like that's like, oh my God. But if you don't know that, you don't know that.
I mean, it's back then. It wasn't like internet wasn't everywhere like it is today.
Right. Right.
So information was not at your fingertips.
He's at home watching the news, and he's like, oh yeah, I saw this thing happen today. And he was saying as though it were him. So by the time he came home to her, he was skinnier and looked tired, and his feet were like bruised up and messed up because he said that he had to walk for days and days, and he wasn't allowed to take off his shoes because he couldn't, and like it was just this and that and the other. Later we find out that he had actually bought shoes that were too small for him, and he walked around in them in days, which is why his feet were so messed up.
That is so extra. So ultimately, he did convince her, Mary, that because of his work, terrorists were targeting their family, and he went so far as to say that their children were at risk. And now at this point, so they got married in 20. So they met in 2000. They got married in 2002, and he had told her when they got together that because of a mumps
illness when he was younger, a really bad illness with the mumps when he was younger, that he was not going to be able to have children. So she was like, okay, she already had a daughter and he loved her like she was his own. And so they weren't using protection. And then she got pregnant. And he's like, oh my God, it's a miracle. They told me it was like 1 in a million chance I'd ever have children. And well, then she had another child. So has now 3 children, all under 5.
But only two of those are his.
Only
right?
2 of those are his. So he convinces her that the children are now at risk and they need to be protected at all costs. Okay.
Okay.
So you're oof, right? So she's worried about her husband. She can't talk to anybody about what's happening in her life. She can't talk to a friend. She can't confide in her family. She has nobody. She is dependent on him alone, because he is this secret agent. She can't tell anybody about it. She can't tell anybody what he's doing. She can't tell anybody why he wasn't there for the birth of their children. She can't tell anybody anything. That it can't, like, they canceled the wedding at one point and everything. Like, she can't tell anybody anything. It's all hush hush. So like, how isolating is that?
Now, is she working? Or was she like forced to say, was she like fully dependent on him?
She had her own flat. So she sold the flat. She cashed in all of her 401k, all of her, like, not whatever the equivalent is in the UK. She sold everything she could. They were so poor that she couldn't feed her children. So she would go to her mother's house when she knew that she'd be cooking dinner just so her children could eat. Whew.
That's sad.
She said all told in 6 years they were together, she lost almost 200,000 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Money.
Yeah.
Whatever that is in dollars. So to keep him safe, and sometimes she'd have to send money to the handler, and sometimes she'd have to pay for this, and sometimes she'd have to pay for that. And, I need to pay for petrol, or I need to do this, I need to do that. And so, like, just money sort of, right? It just starts going. And she's like, I need to keep you safe, so I need to pay, and he's not here, and I think he's overseas, and he's in danger's way, and I need to protect him, and I need to protect my children, and are there people following me, and is that van over there across the street? So the anxiety of all of that, like, all of a sudden you think someone's following you, so you start seeing everything, right? Like, the anxiety of that.
200,000 pounds is $258,400 in today's time. I don't know what it was back then, but that's still that's a lot of money for a mother with children. I mean, for anybody, but especially with a mother with 3 young children.
Yeah. It was a dark time, is what she said. It was a dark time. So once she got a call from him saying he needed 5,000 pounds, and she just didn't have it. The fear he would die was so real. And she didn't have anyone to talk to about that. You can't call your friends and your family and say, hey, my husband's in trouble. Can you lend me money? Like, she wasn't asking anybody for money. She was just like, I don't have the money. Yeah. She would ask for money for certain things, like to feed her kids, but she can't ask for thousands and thousands of pounds, right?
Yeah.
And so keep that 5,000 pounds in the back of your mind.
Okay.
For now.
5,000 pounds.
We'll come back to that. But she started to get curious. About him. And this was in the early 2000s, right? So was Google around then?
The internet came existed. Out in 98. It came out after we were born, for sure.
We were born?
It was. I was born before Google, yes.
Okay, well, I was definitely born before computer. So, okay.
Google was founded September 4th, 1998.
Okay, so 98. Okay, so Google might have been around, but maybe wasn't what it is now.
Definitely,
so
probably wasn't.
she's looking up his name, and there's nothing. So she knows that he has this business, right? This IT business. And so she searches up the business name, like in the business directory, and she sees that there's a business license, and she sees that attached to that business license that the co-owner is a woman's name, and that address of his. So she was like, "What? Who is this? Who this be?"
That's kind of messy on his part,
right?
I mean, thankfully, but that's like messy.
The address is a town that's about 45 minutes away from her home. And she's, so she sees this other woman's name. She's like, well, shit, I'm 45 minutes away. I'm going to go check this out. So she gets in her car.
She doesn't even call, just goes
No,
there.
she just goes. She just shows up, right? It's this huge, beautiful, gorgeous estate home, right? There are kids' toys all up in the yard. And she's like, what the actual fuck, y'all? Is he married with children? Like, what is happening? So she confronts William, and he's like, okay, that is a safe house for the CIA agents.
Oh my God.
And the woman living there is also an agent. And she is my agent wife to protect our identities. She's only pretending
tell me she did
to
not
be
believe
my
that.
wife. But I'm married to you, see? I'm married to you, and I live here. And I've been away in all these countries, see? I was in Israel, right? I'm not there. I come home to you, right? You talk to Al, my handler, see? You believe me, right?
Please tell me she didn't.
She did.
Oh, this poor woman. Like, he just...
Think about it, though.
No, I'm not saying
you're like, this is... What? Oh, that makes... That's like the confirmation bias. I don't want to believe that you have another wife and children.
Yeah.
So you're telling me what I want to hear.
Yeah, just the fact that he was able to... Like, the fact that he did all of this just to lie to him, but
to lie.
It was so bizarre to me.
I mean, this was his work. This was his job.
Yeah, but that's so, like, why wouldn't you just want a normal job instead of to go through all of this?
And the fact that he could, like, make a program
he could have been rich.
He could have been rich, bitch.
Like, back in those days when nothing really had been, like, invented yet, like, as far as, like, apps and programs and shit. Like,
he had a program texting this woman.
That's what I'm saying. He could have, like, I don't understand why he didn't. The links that thieves and other con artists go through to make money when they could literally just make legit money based on how smart most of them are is just crazy to me. Like, so many of them are so
like
smart.
Psychopathy, right? I mean, isn't that part of it?
I guess, but geez. Seems
Well,
like
one
a
day,
lot of work is all I'm saying.
Girl, I know. Lying is hard. Okay, so one day, that's the title.
Yeah.
Lying is hard. That's the name of my beer, actually, from Galveston.
Nice.
Is Math is Hard. It's a double IPA. Ooh, yeah. All right. Okay. So one day, the phone rings. This is about when I started going, oh shit, I'm like on page 3 and I'm still on Mary.
The phone rings to Mary.
Yes. The phone rings to Mary. And this is about when I'm typing going, I'm still on Mary.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This is when I was telling
Mary
you.
gets a phone call.
Mary gets a phone call. Hello. Hi, is this Mary Turner Thompson? Yes, it is. Are you also Mrs. Jordan? Yes. Well, says the other woman, I am the other Mrs. Jordan.
Is it the estate lady?
Boom. Yes. The floodgates begin to open. So she proceeds to tear Mary's little life to fucking shreds. Shreds, I tell you. The last 6 years of her life are a fucking lie.
My God.
Everything, and I mean everything that William ever told her was a lie. The other Mrs. Jordan and he had been married for 15 years, had 5 children together, and live in that huge house. Also, they had a nanny that lived there. That nanny also had 2 children by William.
And the other Mrs. Jordan
She
was
must
like
have
chill with
just
this?
found the fuck out.
Oh, that's probably what. Yeah.
And that's why she
Okay.
called. So for those keeping track, the man who said he could not have children now has 9 children.
Okay.
9.
In a not very long period of
In a
time.
not very long period of time.
Okay.
She asked her, did he tell you that I was a secret agent? Mary said, yes. He said, well, that's what he told me about you. How does this not totally fuck your shit up? This is going to have like some trigger word, like, I don't know. I'm cussing a lot in this
Everyone's
because
gonna be looking
this
at their
man.
husbands like,
What?
were you really at work today?
Well, Mr. William Allen Jordan fuck with the wrong chica. Let me just tell you right now. When I said at the beginning that she was a heroine, she's a badass.
You're talking about Mary, or you're talking about the estate woman?
Mary.
Okay.
Well, thank you to the estate, the other Mrs. Jordan for coming forward. Thank you, other Mrs. Jordan, because you started the ball rolling.
Got it.
So she cut ties. She refused to talk to him. She was like, man, I know if I answer that phone or anything, if I talk to him, he will wiggle his way.
Good for her.
You know, so she was like, I was afraid he was going to show up at the house. He never did. He never showed up at her house.
I'm sure he knew he was busted.
But he did. She told him. She was like, not only that, did they found out that he had an assault charge, not an assault charge, an actual, like he went to jail for sexually assaulting a minor under 13.
While he was married to both of these?
Who knows when that
Just
happened.
at some point he had gone to jail for
so he was a
sexual assault.
So he was a sex offender
and a pedophile.
So he was he was
and then he had 9 children.
And then he had
3
9
women
children
at this point.
Yeah.
2 wives, 1 nanny. I'm just trying to make sure
We don't
we're all
even
on
know.
track.
Yes. So
Okay.
yes. Okay. So she finds all this out and she's like, the only thing I knew to do is write. So she wrote in 2008 a book called The Bigamist. I haven't read it yet. And that's when I said I
love
didn't
this
do.
woman.
I know. She's a badass. I didn't do my I have not read it. It's in my Audible. I would read
gonna have to
so
listen to it,
slow. Yeah, I would read so slow. It's in my Audible, so I can listen to it. So she basically just outlines everything, what happened to her. And she says this in a 3-part documentary series. It's on BritBox. You can get a 7-day free trial, which is what I did, to watch it, called The Other Mrs. Jordan, for anyone who has Amazon Prime.
That's from her?
It's her story. It's this story.
Right. Okay.
So I first heard about it on Dateline, did some research, then the BritBox docuseries.
Okay.
It's a 3-part series,
Okay.
and it starts with Mary.
Okay, got it.
If you can get it, highly recommend it. She says, for anyone who's being judgy, basically, if you think this can't happen to you, you can't say that because you don't know.
Right.
The women that he targeted, they were specifically targeted for being smart,
Wow.
with high empathy, very empathetic.
He had to have been watching them for a long time. Or
I think he just knew, like, oh, you're a single mom. You're gonna, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, you own your own flat. Oh, you have a good job. You're a nurse. You make good money. You do,
Got
you know
it.
what I mean? Like, he wasn't dumb. You know,
Yeah.
you're a well-established woman.
he could profile people.
He could profile people. The women who were conned were not dumb. He was just really, really good at lying. And even his son, Mary's youngest, even his son is like, some people are really good at their job. He's really good at lying. So you should have no shame for having been a victim. You are the victim of a crime.
Thank goodness the kids recognize that. You know what I mean?
Well,
and don't
yeah,
blame
they
her
don't-
for it.
No, they didn't. He's really good at manipulating, twisting things. He did emotional and psychological jujitsu on these people, right?
Yeah.
Told them what they wanted to hear, when they wanted to hear it. He just knew them.
Yeah.
He was just like that, like a cult leader, right?
Yeah.
So like I said, Mary later learned that Jordan, William Allen Jordan, was taking money from her, almost 200,000 pounds, to finance his covert operations. But when the book was released and she went on TV to do interviews about it, the other women started to reach out to her.
Did you say women?
Women. Other women started to reach out to her.
Damn.
One woman in London saw her interview, saw the photos, and she was like, holy shit, that's my boyfriend. So she reached out to Mary and learned that the man she'd been about to marry herself was William Allen Jordan. And they figured out between the two of them that on the day this woman was in London to purchase her engagement ring, William Allen Jordan took a step and said, oh, it's £5,000. Let me call my accountant.
He called Mary to get money to buy an engagement ring for another woman.
Mary couldn't deliver. Mary couldn't get the money, so she never got that ring. He was using other women's money to pay for the gifts and the wining and dining or whatever, the love bombing he was doing to all of his future victims. It was a relationship Ponzi scheme. Does this blow your mind? Does this blow your mind or what? This blows my mind. It blows my mind. Blows my mind. And I told Ashley this, my fucking structure of the story is so messed up because I'm like, I know.
But it's such a crazy story. How do you even structure it?
I know. Like, I'm just like, I just like wrote it like it's because I know too much, right? Because this story gets me so amped up. So eventually, William Allen Jordan was arrested in the UK for his bigamy, and he spent 3 years in jail there. And as soon as he was released, they're like, get the fuck out. So they deported him straight back to New Jersey. He went right back to the US. They're like, you're an American citizen, GTFO.
Dang.
So did he stop his wicked ways?
I'm going to say no.
Nope. After making it back to the US, he started dating a woman in Mexico City, Itzel, who thought he worked for a bank. We don't know a whole lot about everyone he dated. We do know that there was a woman in Japan. And there were other women elsewhere. So, but we know that for sure there's a woman in Japan, a woman in UK, or multiple women in the US. And then, and then this with one woman in Mexico City that we know for sure. And so they were in Mexico City. He had convinced Itzel to rent or buy a really fancy high-rise apartment, in the middle of Mexico City. And they went out one weekend, with her brother to a club, and one of his credit cards is declined, and maybe more than one. And somehow during the night, it wasn't a big deal. It was just sort of like, and he said he worked for a bank. And then throughout the night, he kind of makes mention to her brother, like, oh, I'd love for you to come work for me. And that set off a red flag for her brother, because he was like, your fucking credit cards were declined. Why would I come work for you?
Yeah.
And he was like, something's up with this guy, right?
Yeah.
So he goes into their apartment. I mean, I don't know that that's legal, but he goes into their apartment while Itzel and William are out or whatever. And he finds other passports and IDs and credit cards.
How did she not find it?
She wasn't looking, I guess. And he was always there.
I guess like he had the intention to look for it.
Yes. So she wasn't thinking about it.
I'm just surprised he would keep, you know what I mean? I'm surprised that he would keep it in the house where she could potentially find it. Like, that seems so weird because he's so,
That comes in later.
Yeah.
So that comes in later. So 3 weeks later, after doing this, after this disco night, after the club, he calls his sister and they're watching TV, and, Obama's in Mexico. Like, that's the clip they showed on the documentary. Like, it was the day Obama was in Mexico City. And her brother calls and says, you need to come over right now. There's a family emergency. So she goes over there and he lays it out. Here's what we found. So she calls William and she said, I know who you are. I know what you're doing. And we're done. And she said for a long time, they were really scared that he would retaliate. Like, like there would be some sort of revenge
Yeah.
on his part physically. Like they all, you know, what is he capable of?
Right.
And so there was fear in that. She lived in fear for quite some time.
Yeah. They did not have children though.
They did not have children. So that brings us back. So that ended that relationship. So that brings us now to marriage number 3 that we know of. That's Molly. So 2004, 2005, that's about all we know of her. I'm going to note here that there are a lot of women that he conned did not come forward, or they want their full names they don't want them disclosed. So they're ashamed, but again, there's no need to be. He was a fantastic manipulator.
He
So
insane.
no shame. There's so many other women.
Yeah.
You are not alone, right? So around 2004, Jordan returned to the United States, where he began another relationship, this time with a woman named Molly in New Jersey. He fed her the same line. He was a CIA agent, in danger, secret missions, even convinced her to have a child with him. Their son was born in 2005, but before Molly could unravel the truth, he was already on and plotting his next move. So she was starting to get suspicious, and he was like, I better go. That's as soon as someone starts getting suspicious, he's like, meh.
So we're at 10 children, right? 10 children now that we know of.
I think there were others,
But that we know
that
of.
right
There's
now.
10.
Right now, there's
Yeah.
10. Mhm.
Okay.
So this is 100% the kind of case where like we need that wall, right?
Oh, yeah.
With the string. We like here's the family
Yeah.
tree, but it all stems from William Jordan, right? Like all these people.
Yeah.
And so what we know is that there was about 20 serious relationships and 10 proposals.
Oh my God.
But the one that took him down.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. Like there's so much that's happening.
Right. It seems like very back to back, all of these.
They're happening
Well, that's what I'm
consecutively,
saying.
like
the
concurrent.
children and all of that. It
Yes.
seems like.
So all said and done, there were 15 plus children.
Oh my God.
And that's what we know.
Yeah.
And there might be more. Okay. So like, that's the crazy part. How much damage he's done. And I hope that they didn't all know him. Because it's
Yeah.
one thing to like have a dad who you think is this amazing human, and then to turn around and then it not be true.
Yeah.
Or to have an empty space that
Yeah.
gets to be filled by other people. And that's what Mary's youngest, her son, said. I didn't know him. So he didn't get to leave an imprint on me. He
Yeah.
left a void for someone else to come in and be a better role model for me.
Nice.
His
Yeah.
sister remembers him.
Yeah.
And so you can see the conflict in her, even though she'll say we're just pawns, we're Sims in his little simulation, and he's just moving us around, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a donor, not a father. I don't want
Yeah.
to give him that title. Like she understands that, and I think intellectually she does, but there's still that
Yeah,
like
it's so hard.
like I remember daddy,
Yeah,
right? Like
it's
you can
so
still
hard.
see, like she'll say like what I remember is like he was the person that kept me safe. So like there was this like it was so good
My
and
God,
warm
this is
and
not
sweet.
a heartwarming story.
Silver linings, okay? No one dies. All right, so
I don't know that that's the silver lining. It's like he should have died.
Oh God. Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. But the one that took him down.
Okay.
Took him down.
Excited.
The end of the craziness came in 2014 when he met Michelle Lewis. Michelle's a badass. Badass.
Oh.
Love her. Thanks to her and Mary. And so many others, we have the ending that we have.
Okay.
Because, all right, so Michelle, she was a 35-year-old mother of 2. She was from Florence, New Jersey. She said she met Jordan, who at the time was 49. My age. Could you imagine me doing this shit at my age?
How old was she?
She was 35.
35. He was 49. Okay.
And she met him in 2013 via an online dating service. Her marriage was falling apart. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Perfect timing. He had this little English accent. He was very mild mannered, and he came to Thanksgiving dinner saying, "Oh, I've never had a Thanksgiving meal.
Oh my
This
gosh.
will be my first familial Thanksgiving in the United States. So like, oh, I love apple pie. And it was just like, it was all so endearing, right? It was all so endearing. Meanwhile, his mom lived in like,
yeah, down the street,
right? He said his name was Liam Allen. He was an Englishman.
Oh.
Who'd immigrated to the U.S. as a child and worked in secret operations for the British Ministry of Defense.
I'm sorry, is this the only time he gave a fake name that we know of?
There's other aliases.
Oh,
No, there were
okay.
other
I didn't know if
aliases,
he used his real. I was like, that's weird.
Once he went to jail,
Oh, okay, yeah.
you needed to not have the name you could Google.
Yeah, got it.
Right. So she believed him. Why wouldn't you believe somebody? And when he told her she needed a security clearance to talk to him more, okay, she wired a purported middleman cash in order to show her trustworthiness. Right. If you want to continue to see me, then you'll have to do this. Otherwise, you'll never be able to meet my parents. You won't be able to come out to the English cottage that they own.
That Miss Jordan
that house. Really, they lived in New Jersey. And soon he proposed, and she said yes. She accepted. In early 2014, she found out she was pregnant. She was thrilled. And when she sent him a photo of the pregnancy test, and look at what happened, we're pregnant, they're engaged now.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be excited? And he was just silent. Nothing. No response. And
you would think he would be thrilled.
And he was just detached. He didn't show up to Christmas with the family. Didn't show up at all. Didn't call. Didn't show up. Just didn't show up to Christmas with the family. She was devastated. And he had this black bag, little black backpack that he carried around with him everywhere. Even took it to the bathroom with him.
Weird.
Well, he was a secret CIA agent. He needed to be ready to go at the moment's notice. So it was just what if they're in a restaurant? He gets a call and he needs to be able to go. He's just going to grab his bag and go.
Okay.
Ready at all times. Okay. Everything he needs is in there. Ready at all times. Which reminds me of Savannah's husband, because he had that little black bag that he kept. And so one day he was in the shower. And do you remember that? Do you remember that he kept that bag, Savannah's husband? And then that's how he was taken down. Something happened that made his girlfriend at the time suspicious.
Yeah.
And same here. Something was itching Michelle. And he went to the bathroom and he did not take his black bag. And she opens it up and she finds his real ID. And so she Googles him, and holy shit. Like Mary, the floodgates opened and we find out all the so many horrible things about him. There's a case, for sexual assault of a minor under the age of 13. Like what?
Yeah.
And he, of course, has all kinds of excuses and explanations, but nope. So she calls it off, calls Mary. And she and Mary become this mighty duo. And even though they're separated by this huge pond, they are not a team to be fucked with. I'm going to tell you that right now. I love it. So in order to, so Michelle actually takes this to the police, and she's like, "Hey, I'm dating this guy. I'm engaged to this guy. This is what's up. He's blah, blah, blah," and they're like, "We don't have enough to charge him with anything. There's not enough."
Are you kidding me?
Nope. There's not enough to charge him with anything. So she, not the police, puts on wires. She has a purse with a camera. She's got her phone. She puts cameras everywhere. And she and Mary decide that they are going to string him along. Because this is when Mary says, now this is when it's fun for him. If he can get you to come back, that's the fun part. That's the fun part for him. So she's like, okay, all right. So the videos of him, and like she first is like, you had every opportunity to tell me the truth. And this is so calm. They're not fighting. There's no screaming, crying, yelling, nothing. She says, you had every opportunity to tell me the truth. And he was like, yes, that's what you think. But had I been able to trust you more,
Wow.
then I would have, oh, like he's able to turn everything. And man, I'm listening to it, and it's like word salad, but at the same time, it's like he's trying to make her think that she's the one at fault for his lies.
Yeah.
It is amazing to be able to hear that.
Yeah.
If there's no other reason to get a 7-day free trial of BritBox is just to see that video, because he's like, I only lied because you weren't trustworthy enough for me to tell you the truth. I would have told you the truth.
She has a lot of restraint, because I probably would have killed the man.
She's at the end of one video going, I love hanging out with you. You're like, I love spending time with you. And he's like, I love you. She says, I love you too. And, he thinks he's like reeling her back in, and she's playing a game. Like, I'm going to get him to admit to this stuff.
Yeah.
And she's just trying. So there's text messages and emails and these videos, and she just compiles this huge ass, binder of all of this stuff, and she takes it to the police, and she's like, there, like, bring charges, but here's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna do a sting operation.
She's saying this?
She's telling them this is a sting operation.
I love this.
It is her idea to use herself as bait, and she's like, okay, we're gonna meet at the CVS parking lot, and this is how he's gonna come, or like, we're gonna meet at this parking lot, and this is how he's gonna come here, so catch him in the middle of it. Well, he comes a different way, and he starts walking up to her window, and she's like, oh shit, like, she's found out, because he tracks her phone, because remember, he's a secret agent, and she needed to have a specific kind of phone so he could track it.
Yeah. Oh.
So she had to be where she was supposed to be. She couldn't, she couldn't be with anybody else or whatever. So she was like, catch him before he gets in my car, because she was like, really, like, she didn't know if he was going to hurt her.
Yeah.
Or if he was going to catch on that she was lying and stringing him along and recording everything. So she's like, oh my God. So he goes, oh, I need to run into the CVS and get a prescription for my mom. So
who lives in England?
Yep. So,
or did he come? I guess he confessed about that when everything came out.
So she goes, I need to go in here and get a thing for my mom. And she was like, okay. So she's on the phone with one jurisdiction of police going, I have maybe 5 minutes. He's in the CVS. This is where he is. Come now. And he came a different way. And so then the other police department has to get in touch with that police department. And so so barely get him. So as he's walking out, the police arrive and they arrest him right there. And he looks over at her and just scowls. She's like, oh, shit. So he gets put away for 3 years. Now this is the woman that tries to get him.
He only got 3 years for all that bullshit.
Yeah. So she tries to get him
like
for rape by deception, right? So sexual assault by fraud or whatever it was. What was it called? Oh, shit.
Rape by fraud is what you said.
Yeah, rape by fraud. But could you imagine, like, we're going to do a sting operation and I'm going to put myself in danger? What a badass.
But like I said, what it must be like to be this man, because he has conned all of these women. He's got children everywhere. He doesn't have a job. The women are paid for, and all he gets is 3 years. And not because they wanted to arrest him, but because this woman on her own collected all this evidence and was like, come get him. This is what we're doing. Like, why does this man, like, why does he not get more? I just don't understand.
So he gets out 2018, I guess. And so then COVID hits, and there's not a whole lot of lot known about what happens to him during that time. But then in 2023, BritBox does this documentary series, and they hire Tex Lindsay, a private eye, to search for him while weaving in the story of Michelle and Mary and some of the other women. The woman from London, she's interviewed. There's a woman who was dating him at the time that this happened, and her name was Evelyn. And she talks about like my dad introduced, or like a friend of my dad's introduced us.
God.
And I think that she thinks he must have known that he was going to meet her, and he did like research on her because they were at the bowling alley, and he was like, man, he said he was into the same things I was into. It was just like meeting another me kind of a thing. Like, I felt like I'd known him my whole life. Like it was, there was
gross.
he did his due diligence before meeting her, and, brought groceries over and cooked dinner and had wine, and, it was so easy to be with him. And he was so charming, and the English accent didn't hurt. And, you know how it goes. So things start to come really into focus, as he, for the private eye, because they know that he's now in Vermont. Now, what happens in Vermont is they're like, oh, we for sure know that he's in Vermont. Yeah. And there's, during the filming, they're like, we don't really know too much about where he's been. And so they're just kind of trying to find him. They're trying to find the last known location of him. Well, during all of this, Mary, Michelle, Evelyn, all of these women, they create a private Facebook group. And so they're all talking, all of these women. Now, there's, like I said, 20 serious relationships, 10 proposals. So like there's so many women,
crap.
right? There's so many women. They're all sharing notes. How did it happen with you? What was what were the aliases that he used? That sort of thing. They're trying to put stuff together, especially for the police, right? Well, a man reaches out to Michelle, and he's like, hey, this guy has been swindling us out of like over $150,000. He said he could put together this website, and I put him in touch with my friends, and everyone paid him in advance. And then he ghosted them.
Dang.
And she's like, do you have photos? Can you send me proof that it's him? And so he does, and it's him. So she sends it to the private eye. They're now 4 days behind him. They're 4 days. They go to his apartment where they know he was, but 4 days before he left that apartment. They know that he was at the Walmart. He's 4 days ago at that Walmart. They have video of him at that Walmart. So they're like, man, he's so close. He's so close. He's so close. Then they find out that he had written almost $17,000 in forged checks from his employer, which was like this restaurant, and like wrote an $11,399 check, like seriously, this huge check, and it's in his account, and they see the copy of the check with his name to William Allen, and they're like, what the fuck, dude? And so he gets arrested for forgery in the second degree, criminal possession of a forged instrument in the second degree, attempted grand larceny in the third degree, and a petty larceny. Now, I think it's attempted grand larceny in the third degree because she was able, the owner of the restaurant saw it so quickly that she was able to stop it. So he didn't actually succeed in getting that money.
Right.
But he still stole it. So why is it attempted? Oh. Anyway. But he can't make bail. He cannot make bail. So it was a $25,000 bail. He could not make it. So he ain't got no money, honey. So he stays in jail because of that. The prosecution has so much more time to build the case against him for all the other shit he was doing. So all of the stuff with the women, all of it gets to be brought back into everything that he had been doing. So not necessarily the stuff he's already been in jail for, but all the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, man, he's going to stay in jail for a little while. And so they're doing that. So all of the shit that he was doing to the women, plus these larceny accusations. So 20 additional women and children in addition to the 4 or 5 that were interviewed in the docuseries were asked to be a part of the series, but they chose to remain anonymous. So what I'm telling you now is just from what these women have come forward to say. With the charges, William faces a maximum of only 7 years in prison. Ugh. But the PI at the end of the show, the PI he brings together Mary and the oldest of William's daughters that she had, Evelyn, who was the most recent girlfriend who met him in the bowling alley, and then Michelle, and they all went to Michelle's house, and it was like they didn't know that he had been arrested. They did not know this yet. And so he was like, everybody come on. So they wait for Mary and her daughter to show up, and he shows up and he tells them the news, and they're all just joyous. I mean, just yes. And they're tears of joy. And then you see his daughter, and that was that moment, like that they stopped celebrating because they're like, man, we're cheering that your dad is in jail. It's like, but that's your dad.
Yeah.
And then Mary says, that's not her dad. That's not her dad. But you could.
My support kitties do not like your story.
What? Hey!
They're down there playing.
Sucks.
See what your story has done.
I know. So you could tell, like, just like the conflict in her. You can't hide that on your face.
Yeah.
I know I'm supposed to be happy, but I'm
not happy about 7 years. I'm very upset that it's only 7.
It's only 7. That he's too old. He's going to be too old to do this anymore when he gets out.
Okay.
He's just going to be too old. He looks terrible. Terrible.
Oh.
She did have good memories of him. She would say I can see that she did have good memories of him. She said, I'm not going to call him, I'm not going to give him the title of father because there's a connotation to that. And that's just too sweet. He's a donor. I think that Mary is what an amazing, she says it when she shows up and it's just Mary and Michelle and Mary's daughter. She says, you two have come so far. And she had pride in these two women. And then for the news to come down and, just like, God, you've come so far.
Yeah.
So I'm so incredibly, like, I'm so jazzed. These women were amazing.
Yes.
What they did on their own.
Yeah.
What the community that they created together.
Yep.
Like there's no shame. There is no shame.
And they still have their Facebook group.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they still stay in touch.
That is amazing.
They're
truly amazing.
They are truly amazing. And that they weren't hateful to one another. They were supportive of each other. There's, don't be, Evelyn even said, I was so ashamed. I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
That this is what happened to my life. Right. She got a text message like, call me as soon as you get this. He's a con man or he's a crook. And she's like, who are you talking about? And she's like, he just got arrested. This man that you're crazy about, he just got arrested. But the fact that all of these women are like, it's okay. This happened to all of us and we're not dumb. We're not dumb.
Yeah.
He's just really good. And Mary's son said, some people are just really good at their job. His job is lying.
Yeah.
And he's really good at it. But the fact that these women came together to take this fucking man down, it just, it gives me, like, I was like, yes. So, when it comes to, rape by deception, rape by fraud, so I'm going to pull this. Hold on. Where is it? This is, the man who Troy Singleton is his name. He was a state legislator in New Jersey. He said there's 2 things on his webpage about it, but he was like, imagine if there was the way that he said it was like, gosh, now I can't find it. Damn it. I can't find it. But he was like, imagine if there was a woman who lied to like an older woman who lied to a younger man to get him into bed by saying that she was a wealthy heiress and, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then that was a lie. And, you know, like you're tricking somebody into believing something about you for them to have sex with you. Right. And,
I could see why that would be hard I could see both sides of people who say that's not a thing and people who say it is. Like,
when people obtain, this is from Yale lawandpolicy.org. And so this is just like a lawyer talking about it, right? It says, when people lie to obtain money, we call it theft. When they lie to enter private property, we call it trespass. When they lie to obtain sex, we have no idea what to call it. Some call it lawful seduction. Others call it criminal rape. An Israeli court recently aligned itself with the latter camp when it convicted an Arab man of rape by deception for falsely claiming that he was a Jewish bachelor in order to have sex with a Jewish woman. So too did a Scottish court when it convicted a transgendered man of sexual intimacy by fraud for failing to reveal his gender history to his girlfriend. In contrast, a grand jury in New Jersey sided with those who call lying to obtain sex an act of lawful seduction when it refused to indict a man for sexual assault for having sex with his fiancée after lying about his nationality, profession, and marital status.
only in America is it not.
In response, New Jersey Assemblyman Troy Singleton sought to amend the state's rape laws to include a crime of sex obtained by fraud or deception. Assemblyman Singleton challenged those who opposed the bill to ask themselves, should the law of, quote, afford less legal protection to a person's body than it does to that person's property? After all, he asked, if it is a crime to deceive individuals out of their property, how can it be lawful to deceive them out of their bodies? The criminal case and subsequent bill sparked national conversation and a healthy dose of scholarly commentary on the limits of the rape law and the fuzzy line between permissible sex and unlawful rape. Why is it so difficult to classify sex obtained by lies as either lawful seduction or criminal sexual assault? In an influential recent article titled The Riddle of Rape by Deception and the Myth of Sexual Autonomy, Professor Jed Rubenfeld suggested that our ambivalence towards pushing sex by deception is the product of a deep fissure in current rape law. More specifically, he claimed that the refusal to broadly criminalize sex by deception is in tension with the modern conception of rape as unconsented to sex. If the modern rape laws define rape as sex without consent, why does sex that is obtained as a result of deception not satisfy the definition of the offense? Damn. So she willingly had sex with him, but because she was deceived.
Right. I see that now. That makes way more sense.
So expressed in more general terms, if contemporary rape statutes seek to protect sexual autonomy, why do these laws leave sex by deception largely unpunished? After all, deception typically negates consent outside of rape law, and choices that are the product of deception are generally viewed to be incompatible with autonomy.
I don't like the fact that there's something called lawful seduction. That just sounds so bizarre. I mean, I get what they're saying, but to me, that's just such a weird phrase.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just this really okay, no sexual assault from my cats either. Y'all, stop it! Socks, you're being a bully. Stop it. You're being a bully. Stop it. But it's this really interesting, like, oh, well, you're raising this point of like, you take something from me, my property, and that's like severely punished. But if I give you, stop it, y'all. They're like crouching tiger, hidden dragon over there.
Just watching them. I mean, sorry guys, we're in a very professional studio. Okay.
So slow. Like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about.
You were talking about the lawful seduction, rape by fraud.
I don't know.
Okay.
But it's a very like
you were saying if like we put such heftiness on people stealing your property. Why not your body?
Why not your body?
Yeah.
And so she was really going for that. Like,
Yeah.
she got pregnant. She did terminate that pregnancy because she was
Good for
like,
her.
I didn't want to be tied to him for the rest of my life. And I didn't want this child to have this father.
Yeah.
You know, like this wasn't.
That's a burden on all of them.
She was like, this isn't who I meant to have a child with. Like that person didn't exist. That person wasn't real.
Yeah.
It was a figment of my imagination. That was all a construct. Like nothing was real. So how is that not?
Yeah. So it hasn't gone. They haven't voted on it yet, or they voted and it didn't pass.
I don't think it got out of committee, honestly. But I know. But I think that this is something that, you know, maybe it needs to be reworded. Maybe it's too broad. Maybe it's, you know.
I really hope they don't let it die because that's crazy.
So it says, the article argues that the riddle of rape by deception is based on a misunderstanding of the kind of autonomy that lies at the heart of the modern rape reform statutes. Properly understood, the chief goal of contemporary rape laws is to neutralize the coercion inherent in sexual relationships that take place in a male-dominated society. So if all we're saying... Sorry, he loves to lick plastic. If we're saying rape is just unconsented sex, then unconsented to sex, then this was sex that was consented to. So we need to maybe need to alter our definition of what rape is, you know. And so it becomes such a bigger conversation.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that when I started looking at interesting sexual assault cases, this was one of them that popped out, and I thought it was just like a very, you know, since April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I wanted to make sure that we talked about sexual assault, and I thought this was just a very, I mean, it's a conversation certainly to be had, and I think people can go, wow, what should be the law? What should be the definition of rape at that? Should we change what the definition of rape is to broaden it, but then does it become too broad? And then...
Yeah. I'm still upset about his 7 years.
But at least they got him.
Yes.
But at least they got him.
Yes.
All right. So that's my story. Anyway, yay.
Yeah, so heartwarming. Yay.
Hey.
My story will not be heartwarming.
It's more heartwarming than you thought, though, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Badass ladies. And
they were amazing.
They were amazing.
Them is amazing.
They're like, warriors, man.
Yeah.
I love that they did it together.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have happened without all of them together. I just love that. I love that. So,
that is good.
So what you got for us next week?
Definitely not heartwarming. Feel good. Absolutely not.
Just back to normal. Where's back to business? Just back to business.
It's a...
You get one palate cleanser.
I don't want to give too much away.
Okay.
It's a
disappearance.
It's unfortunate disappearance of a boyfriend and a girlfriend who were rather young.
Okay, don't give it away.
Yeah, I know I'm not. But that's what I plan to do. If that is what I do, I don't know, but that's what I plan to do. That's what I've been researching. So.
And then the rabbit hole goes.
I know. That's the problem is I start researching one case and then I'm like, oh, that case sounds so interesting, and then it just snowballs. But I really want to do this one. So.
All right. Well, okay, everybody. Until next week. Thanks for coming back. I know we missed last week, and that's it. See something.
Say something.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.